Cyberpunk 2077 is the modern day Skyrim, with all the things that you can achieve now with mods.
At this point, I've played through Cyberpunk 2077 several times. It's a phenomenal game, but I honestly just need something fresh. A hardcore or survival mode would be exactly that. And what you may have not known is that Cyberpunk 2077 was supposed to get such a mode, all the way back in 2019.
Oh wow, that seems interesting. But though, honestly, a Fallout survival mode makes sense. A Skyrim survival mode also does make sense. A Cyberpunk 2077 survival mode doesn't exactly make that much sense. A mod that makes things harder, yeah, it kind of does make sense, but the survival mode, does not. Because you're in a city. You're in a city. It's not exactly hard to find food and whatnot. So the survival aspect of this, kind of low, not gonna lie, but it is an interesting idea. A harder game mode that adds more rules, more things to overcome, definitely sounds pretty good.
The dev was asked about difficulty modes for this game, and described how the most fun one I think will be the hardcore setting where we turn off the UI, you live as well. And that will be a real challenge for a lot of players. And now, over 5 years later, we just got a new mod that effectively adds this in. And by implementing a few more mods on top of all of this—
I'm sorry, did that guy just literally step on air because of reasons?
New mod that effectively adds
He did.
This in. And by implementing a few more mods on top of all of this, you can completely transform your Night City, and really Cyberpunk overall, into a proper hardcore and immersive experience where survival can be a genuine challenge and gameplay feature. This truly is some of the most fun I've had in Cyberpunk.
Well, again, I would not call it survival because there's no survival to be had in Night City. Even though survival in Night City technically kind of fits the bill really well. But it's just a harder mode. A realism mode, we should kind of maybe call it, because, get shot in the head once, you're probably dead. That does seem like the idea here to a huge degree.
Cyberpunk in a long time, and you can get it for yourself with just a few downloads. But the cornerstone mod for this revised experience in Night City is Dark Future. This came out just a couple of weeks ago after having nearly a year of development time. At its core, Dark Future will implement new survival components into the game, so you're now going to need to eat, drink, and sleep to survive in Night City. But even beyond all of that, this—
Oh boy, how will anyone find anything to eat and drink in Night City? And also, by the way, this is very dystopian, I don't think intentional, but the fucking fact that nutrition is literally the icon for nutrition is literally sushi. Very, very fitting, because honestly, sushi is probably the most healthy thing a lot of people eat. The average people, okay? Because sushi's just a little bit of fish and rice, okay?
This mod also includes a special X factor that'll make it far more fun, and that is Nerve, which really ends up becoming the cornerstone of survival. Nerve is meant to be your nerve, V's nerve, how comfortable or not you are in Night City. This is a stressful place, and constantly getting into combat, being hacked by other people, and potentially getting tired, hungry, or thirsty will gradually reduce your nerve.
You know what I'm honestly waiting for in Cyberpunk? And this is going to be probably the greatest mode ever. It is a mode that actually realizes cyberpsychosis. And in the sense that, random shit happens and you cannot distinguish the fact that it's real or not. Something as massive as that, You get cyberpsychosis and things happen and you can't tell if this is actually a thing that's supposed to happen in the game or not. Or is it just all made up? That would be amazing.
Over time. And yeah, I mean that literally. Taking down other people, or alternatively getting quick hacked by other people, are two of the primary ways your nerve will be reduced. And this really is meant to be a very immersive element of the game now. Yeah, taking down copious amounts of humans will make you a bit more anxious, and this mod is meant to reflect that. But you also just need to take care of yourself more broadly. If those other survival needs are diminishing, it will impact your nerve, aka your mental. No longer can you just be that sweaty gamer in Cyberpunk who neglects eating or sleeping. And just to get it out of the way right here from the onset, basically every aspect of this mod is configurable. So if there's something I talk about and you're like, oh, that sounds annoying, or that seems way too difficult, yeah, you could probably turn it down, turn it up, or just turn it off completely. It really is a very flexible mod. But now, as you play through Cyberpunk 2077, and just with time passing, some of those survival needs will go down. And if you neglect these, or just get stuck on a certain quest for a little bit too long, this actually can end up having a big impact on gameplay. As really each of the major survival needs will have something it affects about your character. Hydration will largely be around stamina, so when you hit various levels of dehydration, your stamina regeneration will be lowered. But you'll
of course it is. I mean, in Fallout, it was your AP.
Also use more stamina from things like sprinting and jumping. They'll become more expensive. So this could be a really bad feeling when you're using a mobile playstyle. If you're constantly running around, or especially with a melee weapon or shotgun, yeah, you're going to want to make sure you have some water on you. You can of course resolve this by consuming non-alcoholic liquids. And one of the cool parts about this is, depending on the
What do you mean? Alcohol hydrates?
tier of liquid, it'll restore more of your hydration. Many of the individual items in Night City were
Oh, what is that? An old pizza? Or did that say anchovy pizza?
individual
Artichoke and avocado. Oh, that's disgusting. Who and why would ever consume something like that? Now, avocado is not the worst thing in the world, but damn, what is wrong with you? Maybe they need the black wall to fail and all of them dying, honestly. Maybe that's a solution to artichoke and avocado pizza. Anchovies are delicious, by the way. Haven't never eaten anchovy pizza, but considering I'm a big fan of Hawaiian pizza, I mean, boys.
items in Night City were reconfigured to work better with this mod. And some of the highest tier of liquids will actually give you a buff if you are above a certain hydration level. So you'll notice on several of these, I'll actually get a stamina bonus when I'm properly hydrated. Malnutrition will deal more with your max health and make your health regeneration slower, but it also can bring debuffs to melee speed. If you're starving, you probably can't swing that sword or bat nearly as quick as if you're not starving. The hunger need probably makes the most sense in Night City. There are so many various food vendors or just places to get something to eat, and now you'll actually have a reason to go there. But the most relatable of the debuffs is being tired. This will lower your max stamina, RAM recovery rate, as well as reload speed. So it'll pretty much impact you regardless of what playstyle you're using. The max stamina hit in particular can be brutal, as shooting of course now uses stamina. And of course you can just resolve this by going back to
shooting uses stamina. Well, that's something different.
an apartment and sleeping, but there are several more ways to deal with this even beyond that.
Yeah, it's like sleeping on a park bench.
There are going to be stimulants added into Night City. So if you can't make it through the day, you can go.
What would that be? Coffee? I mean, how much stimulants are we talking about? Okay, how much coke can a cyborg need to actually stay awake for a day?
And make a coffee at home, or perhaps grab an energy drink. This will hydrate you while also lowering your exhaustion, but the mod author behind this one was very smart, as you're only able to consume 4 stimulating items in a day. It's basically a hard limit that'll force you to go home eventually and actually get that long sleep. But honestly, all of that's really a secondary aspect of this mod.
I mean, that's kind of decent management, but the big problem with every survival mode is very simple. It's the fact that when you figure stuff out, these are just annoyance bars, and they no longer matter, because you already have the food, you already have the water, you have everything.
A lot of these needs are relatively easy to take care of. All you need to do is occasionally go to the vendor to stock up on some new food or drinks, and from time to time return to your apartment to get that nap in. A lot of the larger impacts will be from nerve. Any of the previously mentioned stats being low will cause your nerve to go lower over time as well, but of course, like I mentioned, killing as well as getting quick hacks will lower your nerve more directly, and this can get brutal. Initially, you'll just have lighter debuffs as you're really on edge or anxious. Stamina taking longer to recover, and weapon accuracy declining. And you can start to really feel the weapon accuracy aspect of this. If you start to become anxious in Night City, you'll notice that, oh yeah, my aim is not nearly as good as it should be. And of course, the lower your nerve
Okay, that is, by the way, insane.
gets, the worse things will get. As your mental gets worse and worse, you'll have bigger stamina debuffs and your accuracy will just fall off a cliff. But one of the pretty cool parts about this mod is, as you get more and more anxious, some of those other things will stop working as well. Become distressed and you'll no longer be able to make it through a night's sleep. Typically, sleep is a relatively easy get out of jail free card with nerve, but if you're too stressed, yeah, you can't fall asleep. That's very real. And one step lower than that, and you can't even eat or drink either. So nerve will start to significantly impact your performance in combat and really just getting around due to some of those stamina debuffs. And if your nerve somehow reaches 0, your character will flat out die from a heart attack. So this might all be
Oh wow, that is a bit much.
sounding like a lot at this point. Several new stats and even some new items you have to think about, but one of the really great parts about this mod is how nicely implemented it is. So you can easily track all of this in-game just via your HUD. You'll have on-screen status bars, and by opening the weapon wheel, you can see a more detailed description of your current status. In addition, as the various debuffs do start to kick in, this mod has tutorials that will pop up in-game guiding you on how to resolve them. So yeah, even if this is seeming like a lot, it's definitely one of those mods that you could just download right now and dive into. The game itself will guide
you. Right.
It's definitely one of those mods that you could just download right now and dive into. The game itself will guide you without having to spend an hour reading some Nexus page. Because there is a lot beyond all of that, and where this mod really becomes fun is as you start to resolve some of these major issues. There are a bunch of new items added in to help keep your nerve in check. You can go to vendors and find new things like cigarettes, or even alcohol, which of course was always in Night City. Cigarettes are completely new, but now each of these items will have addictive components which can give you other debuffs.
Oh, wait, this is very, very encompassing. Now, this I like. Okay, usually survival modes don't go this far. This is pretty nice. This is very nice, in fact. And the fact that you can, like, get rid of this by smoking a cigarette, but that gets you addicted to something. Now, these problems should be huge, and they should be, like, very, very, very impactful. The more of them you get, the more you are ruined.
Buffs, but they're really powerful at mediating your nerve. With alcohol, you could even just have 4 drinks and you won't have the negative effects of nerve in combat for a brief period. So alternatively, if you don't want to just resort to smoking and drinking, you can go the more natural route to get help. You can go and hang out with your romantic partner in Night City. This will rapidly decrease your nerve and pretty much set you up to be good for a couple of days.
Yeah, what if she's a bitch, though?
You can go to a bar and grab a drink, or...
Also, that's not how that works in real life. It's like, okay, you relieve stress for the moment, but it's not a buff.
Even just go dancing at one of the clubs in Night City. All of these will be some of the most efficient
That's pretty gay.
ways to reduce that nerve, and there's even a lot more beyond all of that. You can grab new pieces of cyberware with this mod. There's things like Sin Lungs that reduce the downsides of smoking. Several perks have added effects or overhauls to work with some of these.
Why would Cyber Lungs not remove all the negatives of smoking?
Several perks have added effects or overhauls to work with some of these new features, and even optional features like cooldowns on how quickly you can call vehicles or outright disabling fast travel are included by default. And this mod even has an injury system where you can get a longer lasting injury from combat, and it will require a consumable to solve it. But the real power of Dark Future is the impact it has on day-to-day gameplay in Night City. This mod will force you to return to your apartment from time to time. You'll use a bunch of the content in this game
That's kind of pretty cool, though,
that you were typically avoiding, and actually makes you do this in an organic and natural way. You'll just kind of integrate it into your typical...
Listen, there's nothing organic about you drinking 15 bottles of water in a row because you're dehydrated.
gameplay loop between questing and doing gigs. And I feel like that's what makes this mod so powerful. It can seem cumbersome at points, but as you're actually playing the game, a lot of this becomes really fun. But of course, it doesn't really do a whole ton on the combat side. You can get certain debuffs to your character, but if you're looking to make Night City overall and its combat even more hard...
You know what I have never actually seen? Any any survival mode trying to get rid of the fact that food is just so easily to come by and whatnot. And the way to deal with that, because again, food and drink is not an issue in any survival mode like 1 hour in pretty much. There are no games that actually make it that hard. But when you have a lot, I have never seen a game, for example, do this. That you can overeat. And if you overeat, you become, well, addicted to food, aka fat. And then you need to eat a lot more to actually sustain your hunger. And that you can, yeah, that's, if you eat too much at once or eat too often, that you require more to actually get rid of the hunger and thirst and whatnot.
Hardcore. You can also add on
And that can actually have more negative things involved with it.
the Hardcore 22 V2 mod, which will be more of a proper damage overhaul and is honestly one of my personal favorite ways to experience Cyberpunk 2077. Because what this mod will do is make it so every single weapon in Night City is now deadly, whether it be just some random pistol that you picked up or your own overpowered sniper. Now, it'll almost certainly have enough damage to take out whatever enemy you're up against in just a couple of shots. The big catch with this one though is that random enemy that you're quickly able to take down can now also take you down in just a couple of shots. Hardcore 22 will lower the health of nearly all of the enemies in Night City, but also your own health. So all of a sudden gunfights will feature a whole lot less running around or sliding between cover, because yeah, literally just one stray round can immediately finish you now. So instead, Cyberpunk becomes a lot more about positioning and really relying on your build path, because what you spec into, what kind of abilities you have access to that your enemy likely doesn't, will be how you win many of these gunfights. And to me, this is really fun. I'm not sure this makes Cyberpunk 2077.
Doesn't this just make melee completely inviable to a certain degree, by the way, just as a default thing?
Harder or easier? It really just changes things. The time to kill will now just be super low, so some of those tougher, bullet spongy enemies are not really a problem now. You can just snipe them or take them.
Yeah, but some of those tougher bullet spongy enemies should be a problem, That would be kind of good. We see these mods that increase damage or reduce health for the player and NPCs often, but I mean, how about just making armor actually armor? So, if you're against like the police and they have helmets, that those helmets can actually absorb a bullet or two before they fail. Armor is one because it fucking works, okay? And that's a thing. Your bulletproof vests are bulletproof, at least for a little bit. And it would be nice if a mod finally actually represented that also.
Them down with a couple of shots. But
imagine a survival mode with all of that, and I mean, there's actual problems with dealing with law enforcement because they are dangerous and deadly finally. There are so many ways that Cyberpunk could be made into this absolutely hardcore game that would be perfect.
But it doesn't make it so every enemy is a potential threat. Those stray grenades can absolutely obliterate you now. This mod will also buff up some of the mechanical things in Night City. If it's metal, it's likely going to be tougher, and this mod will make it so those metal things can take far more of a punch. And if you do want to become more of a tanky or stronger character, you can offset all of this somewhat.
Oh no, that's not what I'm talking about.
Just by building yourself up with cyberware. You still won't be as tanky as you can be in the base game, but it's definitely better. And overall, this mod is particular. It's definitely not going to be for everyone, but it definitely does change up the game in a meaningful way, and I think makes things a lot more fun. I think it does complement Dark Future perfectly. But there's a third mod that I think fits into all of this exceptionally well, and that is Enemies of Night City. This will be an enemy overhaul, but the reason I think it fits into this mod setup exceptionally well is because it's really an ability overhaul. Because now, many of the enemies you come up against in Night City will have a new suite of abilities they can utilize, several of which are abilities typically reserved just for you. And this is really nicely implemented, just like the other two mods in this list. You can quickly see what abilities an enemy does have by scanning them.
Well, scanning seems like a waste of time, though.
Them, and then once combat begins, you'll get to see some of those in action. There'll be some blanket additions to a variety of enemies with this one. Lots of enemies can now use Berserk, particularly some of the bigger, heavy weaponed enemies. You'll see them use this and then visually have an effect as they approach you, and you'll feel it when they hit you because they're going to hit quite a bit harder now. Enemies can finally use some leg cyberware, being able to fully lunge or leap at you. Sandevistan also becomes a much larger aspect of the game. Enemies will have access to their own Sandevistan, and they can use this to navigate more effectively. You can see here, an enemy finds a body and then calls over some of his buddies. That's one of the other new features of this mod. And their buddies will use cyberware to get to that body and locate you faster. With some of the more recent
Huh. Okay, that is definitely more deadly. By the way, this is why I think a cyberpunk dystopia would never really work, because people having access to really the stuff that literally makes you into a killing machine, yeah, probably is not gonna end up well. Probably not gonna end up well. Okay? Damn. But in any case, pretty fun. That was Juicehead. 10 out of 10. Bye.